Welcome back to Catholic Lunch Break. This is the weekly program where we catch up with all things Catholic in the greater Houston area. My name is Wyatt Goolsby. I'm the executive director of this radio station, AM 1430. One of the pillars of the Guadalupe Radio Network is to build strong, holy families. Many in the church will tell you that the family is under attack. The good news is we have Christ by our side, and there are things that couples can do to strengthen their bond. Talking with us here in the studio is Dr. Stephanie Zepeda, a licensed marriage and family therapist in Houston, Texas. Dr. Zepeda is an associate professor with accredited Masters of Marriage and Family Therapy at Our Lady of the Lake University's Houston campus. Stephanie, I have much more to say about your intro, and there's a lot more to say about your accreditation. But let's start first with you and I's personal connection. You and I go way back to St. Vincent de Paul Catholic School, actually, here in Houston. Tell me a little bit about what you can remember getting a Catholic education. Go ahead and hit your on button. No, there you go. Good. It's on. Tell me, what can you remember going to Catholic school?
I mean, the uniforms,
of course,
were wonderful.
Right.
And so it's interesting. We got to celebrate our first communion together.
That's right.
Second grade.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter, Aurelia, just celebrated her first communion.
Oh, how exciting.
Wearing my dress.
Really?
From 30 years ago. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's incredible.
And, it's just that experience of going through Catholic school, doing Stations of the Cross during Lent on Fridays, just having the saints kind of ingrained, and you don't appreciate it, right? Like when you're little,
you're not realizing
you have
how
no
important
idea.
it is.
Yeah.
Right.
If anything, you're kind of annoyed and, oh gosh, I gotta go do this. Mm-hmm. And you don't realize until you're older. And now seeing my daughter going through, our son's too little, he's not in Catholic school yet, but the seeing the fruits that she's getting, mm-hmm. and seeing just, our faith is so beautiful and so rich. We've got art and literature and just all these beautiful things that she's learning and thinking, wow, I got that too. Mm-hmm. But I certainly did not appreciate it at the time, right? And so back in our St. Vincent de Paul days, I don't know if we really understood the beauty of what we're getting. But
it's amazing how it still sets a firm foundation,
right,
nevertheless.
And I think it's actually a really beautiful metaphor for heaven. Mm. We never will understand our faith. I've been studying for decades, and mm-hmm. I went to University of Dallas, a great Catholic, education, mm-hmm. and I still will come across beautiful authors who I've never even heard of. And so it's a beautiful metaphor for heaven of we're never going to know on this earth the full beauty of God's glory mm-hmm. until we're on the other side of eternity, right?
Right.
And so I love that we got to meet there, and it's so cool to be here mm-hmm. with you today.
Well, we're happy to have you here. And nowadays you're working as a licensed marriage and family therapist. Tell me, what does that involve? What's a marriage and family therapist?
So it's interesting. You were just talking about vocations
mm-hmm.
on the previous segment.
Yes.
And I was really struck with how I describe becoming a licensed marriage and family therapist as a vocation as well.
Okay.
Right? It's something where sometimes people think, oh, I want to be a therapist because I like telling people what to do. And it's the opposite. It's the opposite of that. It's more listening patiently, walking alongside in suffering, mm-hmm. and helping people make sense of their pain, right? Mm-hmm. And it is a vocation for me. And I hear my students say, often they say, I was made for this. This is the purpose of my life, is to help people mm-hmm. with this pain. And so, it's finding, we can't anesthetize people, and that is not our goal, mm-hmm. right? But we can help them discern their values, discern their purpose, and discern what this pain might mean in that purpose formation, right?
Stephanie, did you always have an interest in the field of marriage and family growing up? Did you know that's what you wanted to study and go into?
No, when I went to University of Dallas, mm-hmm. I first wanted to be an attorney. Mm-hmm. I was going to, go to law school. And then I said, no, I want to go be an OB-GYN. I want to be a physician. Mm-hmm. And then I was doing some research at MD Anderson Cancer Center. And I found myself, I was cleaning data, I was like a research assistant. And I found myself, as I was going through the, patient's files, I didn't really care about the status of their uterus. I cared much more about the stories of their lives. And, they just had this narration. And I was like, gosh, I'm more drawn to the stories of these women's lives. And so I switched my major to psychology and did my research study at UD was on the phenomenon of realizing that your divorce was imminent, right? And so just wanting to understand what people were thinking when they were going through divorce. And then that launched me into, I didn't even know marriage and family therapy existed as a field. And talk about providence, right? I went to, it was my senior year at University of Dallas, and they had a psych night, a psychology club night. I was there for the free pizza, of course. And
as college students do.
Correct, absolutely. Finding your vocation through food, through your stomach. But so I went, and it was really amazing. They had just a panel of, practitioners, and this one practitioner was a marriage family therapist. I didn't even know that field existed. Mm-hmm. And I certainly didn't know it was a license, right? It's an actual entire license. And what differentiates this license from, say, a psychologist or a licensed professional counselor or a social worker is we're the only license that specifically has relational training, right?
Interesting.
You have to work with X number of couples and families in order to obtain this license. And then post-grad, you have to see 500 hours of couples and families, at least, at minimum, a total of 1,500 hours, 500 of which have to be with couples and families. And so that gives us a unique skill set.
Yeah.
It's completely different. When you are working with one client who has one set of goals, okay.
Right.
When you have a couple who
now you're working with a couple, right, two people.
And often opposite goals. Right?
Yeah, I can imagine. It's very challenging. And like I said, that's why you're trying to build strong, holy families is not necessarily an easy thing. We say it's a pillar of the Guadalupe Radio Network, but that doesn't mean that it's simple by any means. What do you think are some of the ways that you try to advise couples to overcome obstacles? And I like I said, I know there are a lot of them, whether it's money or communication. Are there good, just basic practical things that you try to tell people?
The main thing so when a couple comes in and you say, what's your goals for therapy? I think 95% of them will say, we're not communicating.
Okay.
And I say, well, you probably are communicating. You're just probably not communicating very kind messages to each other, but you're definitely communicating. So what are you communicating right now with your dance, with your way of being with each other? Mm-hmm. And what would you prefer to be communicating to each other? Let's not focus. So the way that we practice at Our Lady of the Lake University and the way that we train our students and the way that we practice in our own private practices is from a strengths-based perspective. Mm-hmm. We don't look at what the couple's doing wrong. We don't look at where they are deficient. We look at, okay, what's your hopes? What's your values? What do you want to be doing in your relationship? What do you stand for? Mm-hmm. I ask couples all the time, what's the mission statement of your relationship? Right. What's the goal of your family? And they oftentimes don't have the words for it. And so instead of focusing on, well, he did this and she did that, and that, okay, great, y'all can spend your whole time kind of crucifying each other here, or we can find a way to hold each other lovingly accountable. Yeah. And aim at where do we want to be. Let's not look at where we've been and how we've hurt each other. Let's look at our hopes and our aspirations. And it's we're focusing on teleology. We're focusing on purpose. And I think that so many people, in today's philosophical climate, the word teleology is kind of like a bad word, but it's not for marriage and family therapists. Mm-hmm. We want our couples to feel that sense of purpose within their relationship, and then also within their family, right? A lot of folks say, "Oh, we're staying together for the children." Okay, but why?
Right.
Right?
What are your values? What do you share? Yeah. Absolutely. If you're just now joining us here on the radio program, this is AM 1430. My name is Wyatt Goolsby. I'm talking with Dr. Stephanie Zepeda. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist. And Stephanie, I want to say when you had walked into our studio here at KSHJ, I love how you had pointed out above the door we have JMJ written for Jesus, Mary, Joseph. What do you think families can learn from the Catholic tradition that can help give them those values that you talk about that often they lack or they don't necessarily have come up with a mission statement to clarify what those values are?
Yeah, when you think about the Holy Family and you think about, and this is something that I love about the series, The Chosen, right?
Yes.
It kind of really humanizes the experience of the gospel, and you get to see and think, oh my gosh, they were a family going through really difficult stuff. Mm-hmm. It's easy for us to kind of forget that these saints were humans with real problems and real difficulties. And I think that makes their virtues even more, I don't know, just honorable. And I'm thinking about, in particular, as I was praying the rosary this morning, right, the joyful mysteries, the first one, the Annunciation, right, like the spiritual fruit of that one is humility, mm-hmm. right? And so when I think about Mary's humility, and humility means I don't know where things are going to go. In today's world has tons of unknown. Mm-hmm. The stock market, mortgage interest rates, jobs shifting, moving. There's so many moving parts. There's so many unknowns. It's very easy to let anxiety creep in. And so if we can have humility before life and say, listen, Lord, I don't know what you have planned for me. I'm going to give you my anxiety. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give you my anxiety, and I'm going to trust you to use it and convert it to creativity. Convert my anxiety to creativity. Let it be something that serves you, and let me trust in you. And I think if we can have that humble approach to our family life, and we can listen to each other and be there for each other in a completely different way.
For people who are unfamiliar with Our Lady of the Lake University, that's where you are associate professor. Tell me a little bit about the school.
Yes, for sure. So our main campus is in San Antonio. We were founded in the late 1800s by the Sisters of Divine Providence, some really spunky nuns who came over to give education. It was initially an all-girls university, right, an all-girls college, and really is a Hispanic serving institution in San Antonio. Mm-hmm. And they started the Houston campus back in the 90s. I don't know what year they started the Houston campus, but I know mm-hmm. my program started in 1996 at the Houston campus. And they have been going since then. We specialize again in narrative therapy, solution-focused therapy, and collaborative dialogical practices. Very strengths-based approaches, really looking at the system of the family, the system of the couple, and the system of the individual as well. And it's just wonderful. I tell them all the time, I'm like, I would never teach anywhere else. I absolutely just love this program so much.
And I'm guessing for Houston campus, people come from all over the greater Houston area for some of these programs.
The greater Houston area and Louisiana.
Okay.
And Dallas. We currently have one student who flies in from Mexico City.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So the structure of the program is kind of cool. The structure of the program, it was made for working professionals, right? Mm-hmm. And so we knew it needed to be flexible, but we also knew it needed to be rigorous because they would want a high-quality education, right? So instead of meeting multiple times throughout the week, we condensed all the class time to 7 really intense Saturdays each semester. Mm-hmm. So it's every other Saturday for 7 Saturdays in the semester. We start at 8 in the morning, we go till 5 o'clock at night, we have an hour break for lunch, and but you're running on adrenaline. It's just so exciting being there and learning mm-hmm. together. And so that's why we have some students who, they just drive in for the program because they want that in-person education. You can get your degree online, but especially for this type of therapy. We have a lot of folks who say, I want to learn how to do this in person. I do not want to learn how to be a therapist online. And so we have the flexibility of an online program because we only meet every other, Saturday for classes, but we have the rigor of that in-person relationship building. Yeah.
Very good. And obviously very appropriate for the greater Houston area, having the medical center and everything. It just seems so appropriate. Well, we appreciate your coming in. Like I say, Stephanie, I appreciate everything you said. I'm so glad that you're able to come in. And I like what you said about having humility and thinking back about how the saints were just like you and me, and that we can learn so much from them. We can learn so much from the values of the Holy Family as well. A lot to take in. So I appreciate it. Dr. Stephanie Zepeda, licensed marriage and family therapist, Our Lady of the Lake University. Thank you so much for coming in and talking with us today.
Thank you so much, Wyatt.